lecture tells you of a conversation I had with a potential client about their customer care. Now, we've spoken about understanding the customer's realities, their needs, their wants. Even when a customer says something that you totally understand, be sure that you understand their meaning of the word. There follows a conversation based on real-life events which touches on some of the consultative selling techniques. Could my answers have been better? Probably. And it, of course, has been edited a little for space, but this should give you a good idea of how this sort of conversation should flow in sort of pseudo-real life. The scenario is this. I'd been recommended to a business owner who sold large water bottles and dispensers to other businesses. He called me at the appointed time and pretty much opened with what he wanted. "Hello," he said, "you've been recommended. I want my business to have better customer care. Can you come in and do a couple of mornings on customer care?" "No problem," I responded. "I'd be happy to. I have a huge amount of experience in training and coaching in customer care. But what I'd first like to know though is, what do you mean by customer care? What does customer care mean in your business?" His response was, "Well, not losing customers." I answered, "Well, I can see why that would be important. And is that what's happening at the moment?" "Yes," he said, we lost another 3 this week." So I asked him, "What do you think needs to change?" His answer was, "Well, my 3 telephone operatives need to be better than they are." Better at what? Dealing with customers' problems when they call us. Right. So better customer care for your business would be that the results of inbound telephone calls are improved because your team of 3 handle customer problems better. Is that about right? "Yes," he said, "that's exactly what needs to happen." "Okay," I said, "and if they were able to handle customers better, their performance would improve. So how would you actually measure that performance?" "As I told you," he said, by how many customers we lose, or in fact keep. As I said, we're losing far too many." "What percentage of your customers have you lost this past year?" I asked. Well, he needed to check on his figures, but he came back that it was about 10% loss per annum. So my question then was, and what loss would be acceptable? What sort of should it be? He quipped, well, 0%, but realistically, he said, I'd be happy with half that amount. "Sounds like a plan," I said. "How many customers do you have at the moment?" Well, he had to check this figure too. He said, "It goes up and down a bit, but it's around 700 at the moment." So I said, based on your percentages, you're losing some 70 customers every year, and you'd much prefer that to be about 35, or hopefully fewer, but basically saving 35 customers per year. Give or take, yes, that's exactly what I want, he said. My next question was this. How much does an average customer spend with you? His answer was, well, it depends. Some a few hundred, some a few thousand. He eventually worked out that the average was approximately £2,000 per year. So my next point was this. And if there were no bias in the size of customer leaving you, how much is this therefore costing the company in terms of its turnover? Well, that's easy, he said. 70 times 2,000, which is £140,000. He then swore. He hadn't worked that out before. So, if by improving customer care you were able to half that, I make that, he jumped in, 70 grand saving a year, which represents about 50 grand profit. My next point was, and if I were able to succeed to just 1/2 of this, you'd still be saving nearly £25,000 per year. Is that worth investing in? Absolutely, he responded. I hadn't really done those figures before. I just instinctively knew that we needed customer care. Well, I said, your instincts proved to be correct. At £70,000 a year, you're losing around £1,400 a week of customer income and nearly £1,000 profit every week. So here's my question. When would you like to get started on saving £1,000 a week? We sort of laughed over the phone. He said, well, yesterday would be preferable, last week even better, and about £70,000 ago would have been best. I just need you to do something quick. Well, I went back to him later that day with a verbal proposal. Right, Peter, I said, I'm thinking of a programme for your telephone operatives to train them up, remind them, if you will, of the basics of telephone manner. Then we can move on to more advanced and specific issues relevant to your business, including, by the way, a greater understanding of the value of a customer, a bit like the exercise we did together earlier. He said, that sounds good. After those 2 initial training days, I recommend we undertake 2 review or clinic sessions at 4 and 8 weeks after the initial training in order to track progress, find out what's working and where they may need more information or more help. That's a great idea, he said. Then I said, and then an individual coaching session with each of those 3 to make those minor personal adjustments, which I find can make all the difference. I'll also mystery shop them on 6 occasions. I'll do it twice before the training, twice after the initial training, and then twice in about 6 months' time. This will obviously establish the improvements that are being made. He said, okay, but how much is this going to cost? Well, certainly not the £70,000, which of course is what you're paying now. Other organisations, I said, with similar problems to which I've applied similar solutions, have ended up investing up to around 20% of the saving. For your particular situation, I envisage a figure of less than that. If you were to earmark £12,000, I would do my best to keep it closer to £10,000. As I said before, even if it's only half successful, it will still be worth a £25,000 saving per year to you. So even that would be a return on your £12,000 investment of 200%. Does that sound like a reasonable investment to save the amount of money we're talking about? He said, when did you say you could start? Download the script I've just run through as reference before moving on to the next lecture.